thanks everybody for coming. If you would stand and let's do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On our moment of silence, just remember Jack Wallace, mayor of Marshall, passed away yesterday. So Jack was an icon in Marshall and did a lot for Marshall. So just remember him, his family, the community, because Jack had been the mayor there for I don't know how many years. Y'all,
Couple of terms.
couple of terms. So just remember him, and we have lost. We did our last meeting. We did a second for every person lost COVID in Madison County. So we're going to do a moment of silence for 33 seconds because there's been 33 lives lost in Madison County over COVID. So let's get the time started here. Okay, I got mine up. I got a new phone.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, thank you. 33 seconds is a long time trying to be quiet, ain't it? Especially for Norse. So we need to make a couple of amendments on our agenda. On 9C property, we'll move to 9D property. 9C will be economic incentive. 9D property. 9E will be personnel. Any more that y'all know?
Sir, we're good, Mr. Chairman.
All
I
right.
move we approve the amended agenda.
Second motion.
All in favor? Matt won't be here tonight. Matt's not feeling well, so just be us. Next, we'll move to our public comment. Carl Batchelor. Hello,
guessing
Mr.
this is-
Batchelor. We got 3 minutes. The
Okay,
attorney's keeping time.
very good. Hello, my name is Carl Batchelder, and we live just outside of the town limits of Marshall. I've heard about many people in the community having issues with the disposal of their trash, centered around their inability to obtain a dump card, coupled with stepped-up enforcement at the local trash drop-off sites. That leaves people the only alternatives of dumping along the creeks or roads or burning it themselves. The bottom line is everyone needs a way to safely dispose their trash and recyclables, and a continuous process needs to be in place to make that happen across the board. In fact, the general statutes recognize the health and environmental risks associated with the improper disposal of solid waste. The statute puts the responsibility squarely on you all to assess the local solid waste collection services and disposal capacity and determine the adequacy of the collection services and disposal capacity to meet the local needs and to protect human health and the environment. Each unit of local government shall implement programs and take other actions that it determines are necessary to address deficiencies in service or capacity required to meet the local human health needs and environment. So I'm asking tonight that the state-required assessment of our solid waste collection service be done as soon as practical in an open way with public participation. Thank you for your time, and I'll be watching the rest of the meeting tonight online.
Thank you.
Carl,
Good to see you, sir.
have a good evening.
Next up is Stephanie Cole.
Good evening. I'm here to comment on the same issue, the trash card requirements. Having lived in the county 21 years, having been a property owner, fortunately never issue for me, but through my job working at Community Housing Coalition, we drive around all over the county. We see health hazards. Many of our clients have health hazards, and a lot of it is due to low income, not having the means to take their trash and dispose of it properly, or burning. So it's a health, safety, a sanitary issue, and it should be available to anyone regardless of their ability to pay. The appeals process I'm just learning about. I think that should be very transparent. Sounds like there is an appeal process for those who can't afford to pay. The people I've spoken with, particularly CHC clients, had no idea that was even an option. So knowledge, transparency, knowledge sharing would go a long way toward these folks who can't afford to pay these fees. And another thing, some transparency about whether it's a fee or a tax. Really not straightforward on that. So that's I think there should be open discussion about the entire issue to try to get some clarification and help folks who can't afford to pay these fees find the appeals process a little more simply and be able to dispose of it properly. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Good to see you.
Next is Lynn Harden.
Hello,
Hello,
my
Lynn.
name is Lynn Harden. Thank you all for giving me time to speak tonight. I also wanted to speak about the dump card issue. I myself lost my card last year, and there was a lot of confusion and difficulty getting a replacement, which I did not end up doing. And I know that it's been a real problem and confusion. There's lack of clarification for a lot of people, particularly renters and people that are not landowners, with getting a card and being able to dispose properly of their garbage, which I'm very concerned about the illegal dumping that's going to result, which is something we already have an issue with in the county. And our county is, our employees are already strained and overworked, and thank you all for your time. But if we could have a meeting to discuss this and get input and possible solutions to the problem, I think that would be fantastic. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Last is Chris Watson. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. The Asheville Regional Housing Consortium Board controls the HUD funding that comes down to the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium, of which Madison County is a part. And they allocate those funds to affordable housing projects in the four-county region in the city of Asheville. We often receive funds through the county as a community housing coalition to address affordable housing needs. That board is made up of representatives of the four counties within the housing consortium: Hendersonville, Henderson County, Buncombe County, Madison County, Transylvania County, and of course the city of Asheville. And each of those areas has representatives on the board. Currently on that board, serving for Madison County, Marshall, town of Marshall has a representative, a seat on that board. Robin Merrill serves as the co-chair of the board, and she's the representative. Mars Hill has a seat on that board, which Karen Keenan sits in. Neither of them have an alternate assigned. For Madison County, we get 2 seats and an alternate. And according to the city of Asheville right now, the only person assigned for Madison County is Forrest Gillum. But we don't have anyone for the second seat, which the entire time I've been with Community Housing Coalition, we've only had one representative serving. So Just wanted to make you all aware that we really need a second person on that board and an alternate identified. That board, the consortium will be making decisions in late March, early April about this funding cycle, of which the Community Housing Coalition has applied for $165,000 to start a new housing construction program. So we want to make sure that Madison County, gets their say and has their voice heard as much as possible at that board. So if y'all could get someone appointed to that board and get those seats filled as soon as possible, that'd be really helpful. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
That's it on the public comment. So we will move to item 4, Scott Donald, PFA architect, courthouse and health department building renovation proposal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Board of Commissioners. Appreciate you inviting us to Madison County Board meeting tonight. I'm Scott Donald, PFA Architects. Rob Stenhouse works at my office as well, and he's the project architect for the health department. Just to let you guys know some of the projects that we have done in Madison County that just to help familiarize you with us is most recently would be the Early College High School across the street over at right beside the high school. Also the Brush Creek Elementary, the library and classroom addition. We also did the Mars Hill University, the new nursing building there, the wall science restoration, revitalization, and the Ferguson Math and Science building. So that Ferguson Math and Science building was completed in about 2005. The nursing building was more recently, right around the time of Day Hall. So we're very active in Madison County. And we're also currently doing a study for Madison County schools for some of the critical needs and high priority needs for the school system for some of their projects. Rob's working on the health department right now with Tammy, and this is an addition for the grant money that's coming, and so we've got plans going here now, and on tomorrow our engineers will be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, climbing through there and looking at electrical panels and things like that, just to see the capacity that this project can handle. So I was going to let Rob walk you through some of the plans just to show you where we are with that project, and we can discuss timelines, and then we'll get into the courthouse RFQ that we've submitted just recently for that one.
Good evening, my name is Robert Snell. I'm going to work with Scott. Basically, this is a progress set of drawings that we put together last Friday. Continuing to make progress in the next couple of weeks. Scott mentioned we're going to have our mechanical and electrical engineers go through the building tomorrow morning. So again, I'm just going to kind of walk you through the sheets as we stand right now. Cover sheet, the code enforcement official will want to see a lot of the information on this. And then just kind of let us know how many pages and what's going on. Life safety plan, this lets us know, draw these up to make sure that the occupants of the building can get out of the building safely and on time. So let's know the exit doors, how many people can get through, and our plan looks like we're going to be just fine as far as getting everybody out. We've got a couple of different fire-rated assemblies in the building. The existing building has some, so we're going to kind of continue some of that same construction. There's just a couple of sheets that kind of dictate the contractor how to build those correctly. It's going to give a uniform fire rating. So we've got a wall assembly. This is going to be a ceiling assembly. Again, very similar to what's been done on the existing building. These are our demolition plans. So the first thing we're kind of to the top right is a sort of a plan looking down at the floor. Bottom right is the ceiling. So essentially what we're going to do is we're putting the addition on the front right corner in the grassy area. We're going to strip off the existing finishes, which is kind of an IFIS finish, veneer block at the base, and we'll tear off the soffit as well, so that we can kind of get that building as close as we can and save as much space. Top right there in the bottom left, there's also some compressors for the existing building. We're going to move those over and put them in another little area so that as part of that addition, we're going to have to do that. Here's our kind of floor plans. Again, that's the entire building, and we're just working on that front right quadrant there. Top plan is the floor plan. Here's the new part, right? Yes. Then a reflected ceiling plan, which is shows where all the lights and heaters are for the air conditioning. These are blow-ups. So the task was to create 2 respiratory testing rooms, primarily for COVID, and also a bathroom. And then we've got confidential documents, a small office building or an office for a doctor, women, infant, and children room, and then we've got a small little conference room developed, and I think that will be overflow for the women, infant, and children if they need a little bit more space than just that single office. This is a roof plan of the building. You can see where we're doing on the addition. What we're proposing as an alternate, essentially depending on when the bids come in, the existing roof is kind of shown at the side of the age. We've got some leaks in some different places. It's a metal roof system. So if we were to take the alternate, that would be to take that metal roof off and actually replace the entire roof with this asphalt shingle roof. The new addition will have asphalt shingles, and we'll just work it into the existing metal. But I think hopefully we'll be able to add that to the project. Just some base elevations. We're really trying to recreate essentially what's there. We're not trying to do anything super different. So it's a split face veneer block base, a stucco kind of band there in the middle, then there's some trim at the eave and soffit, and then our roof will just kind of die in and be overbuilt onto the existing building. Take a couple cuts through the building. We're finding maybe some interesting spots that we blow them up. So that first one is where we got a new construction coming on an existing wall, then a cut through a window. The third one is a cut just basically through the wall. That last one is a cut through a door. So we're just kind of making sure that we examine all the different details to make sure that we don't miss anything or leave anything for chance once the job gets under construction. Just kind of, again, blowing up those things a little further, just so we can kind of see the individual pieces of the building going together. We're continuing to develop those other little guys there to the left of that main section. There's the bathroom is kind of critical to kind of blow up and take a good notice of, making sure we get our ADA clearances. So that's sort of what this top of this drawing is, and then just a couple little details where we've got fire ratings that need to carry through and how do we join everything together. So we just want to examine that. This is just listing the doors, finishes, and the windows so that get everything in, information in it so it's prepared for bid. Then right now we've got some structural preliminary stuff at this stage. There are general comments and what type of concrete, all this kind of stuff. We get some more specification type notes. Then we'll have basically, looks like 2 plans. That first one on your left is a foundation plan, and the one on the right would be the framing plan for the roof. So it's not too complicated. The one thing we will have is maybe some different step footings, because as we're coming into a building that's got a crawl space, so its footing is set a little low. We don't want to just bear up against that and potentially blow out that wall. So that's what kind of the main thing for the structure, the trickiest part of the project. And this will get filled out on the specific details of this project as we move forward the next couple of weeks to conclude the drawing stage. That's it.
I don't know if you guys remember this. This is the Roswell Anderson School in Mars Hill. This is a picture I took 11 years ago. This begins our restoration rehabilitation presentation. Some of the recent projects we've worked on. I've got Karen Gravel over there on the monitor. She's virtual. We've been working with Lord Eck Sargent for about a decade now, starting over at AB Tech and Western Carolina University, Warren Wilson College, but they are the premier rehabilitation, restoration, and preservation architects in the Southeast, and they've got quite the number of people over there with experts. So we brought her into this project, not Anderson School, but the courthouse itself, because it's such an important icon to Madison County. I didn't feel qualified enough to take that project on by myself, so I brought in the real experts here. This is the picture I took. David White had called me and he says, I need your help on something. It was about 11 years ago. Go ahead and flip to the next one. This is the back side of it. The tree had pretty much bisected the back of the building. So we had to tear all that off, and we actually raised the floor in the back. The next picture is how it looked in 1930. So our goal was, let's bring it back to that look. So if you look at the very next picture, that's how it is today. So and that's about 11 years worth of work. So you have to do the work as you get the money. So you can't just fix it all in one day. The next project, this is Asheville High School. Rob and I and my office, Vinoy Construction. There's a whole bunch of people involved, but this was a $25 million restoration in over 4 phases, starting in 2016. We just completed the last phase 2.5 years ago, and believe me, we could have spent another $10 million there because of the 7 buildings on that campus. But this was a rehab project. We also upgraded the football stadium. As we originally, our office designed that football stadium in 1980, and we've since gone back 3 times and done upgrades to some of the systems there. So that whole project is complete. We're probably going to revisit it after they've done some of the other school campuses in the future, but we still have more problems in that building that we're keeping up with cost estimates and letting them. It was not on the critical list, but it's certainly high priority. And the longer you wait, the closer it gets to critical. So that's some of the things we're tracking at Asheville City Schools. The project I'd like to talk to you about is the courthouse in Madison County, down there in Marshall. And I brought Lord X Sargent in, and they've done over 60 of these type projects. 25 of them, or a couple dozen of them right there in Georgia, and at least 3 dozen over in Texas, and some in Alabama and Tennessee. So they're very familiar with this type of work and have plenty of models and experiences to use to help you with the Madison County Courthouse. There are also a number of historic structures experience. This is some of their, I think they're in your packet, but all of this is listed out there. Some of the more recent projects they've been working on. This is our RFQ proposal. We have the first page of it was a summary, and we were sort of trying to give you guys an idea of the steps that you could take as far as what you might do with the courthouse, and this is a scenario that you might see as you go through the restoration and rehabilitation of the building. So the second page of this letter here is basically the 5 phases of the work. So, phase 1 is the condition assessment and visioning and schematic design. That's almost 30% of the project right there, just coming up with a goal, a vision in mind. So when Norris called us in October, we were at the health department, but we also got back into the courthouse. It was some things we had started in 2015. So between then and 2 days before Christmas, we kind of came up with some project goals. And Karen and I came up with 8 different goals on this project by meeting with Norris and Mark Cody over at the courthouse. But number 1 was maintain the historic integrity of the building. That was number 1. Number 2 was provide safe and code-compliant egress out of the first floor of the building, because you only have 1 exit out of that building. 3 was provide secure access and other security measures for the building, especially in the world we live in today. It definitely needs to be a secure facility. Ensure that ADA requirements are met. Upgrade the system, all the systems in the building, which is plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, and then remedy any structural issues. Y'all notice the stair on the east side of the building is sagging, so we've got structural engineers involved. In fact, I don't know if you guys know Bertie Feinberg, but he worked with Barney Woodard and Wayne Roberts back in 2000 or even in 1987. When the cupola was replaced on that courthouse. Well, his firm is actually the structural engineering firm that we're using as part of this study, since they're so familiar with this building. The other thing we want to do is incorporate modern utility and technology systems. So bringing in IT, you know, people like Jamie, so you don't have to have everything surface mounted. So we got to have creative ways to conceal all this modern technologies. And then have also, we're limited on square foot, so trying to figure out what kind of programs, how it would work well in there. And then also to connect sanitary systems, if possible, the sewer system. So, but these are the 5 steps that we would look at as we do this. The first 3, the first one is for you guys. We do our visioning. We come up with a program. We come up with an estimated budget. Everything that you'll see as far as costs is all just assumptions based on some of these other buildings they've done at Lordak and Sargent. So phase 1, we're actually coming up with a plan, a vision, and what it might cost. When we get to phase 2 and 3, we're actually drawing for a builder or a contractor. Phase 2 and 3 is developing the contract construction documents to actually bid out in phase 4 and negotiate it with pre-qualified contractors. We want to use people that have done these type projects. We pre-qualified everybody that worked on Asheville High School, for instance. Ludowici was the roofing contractor who supplied the terracotta tiles, and they were the original family that actually put the tile on that roof in 1928, I believe that was. So that the descendants of that family were actually involved in the project. So they're pre-qualified. And then of course phase 5 is the construction. We don't know how long it will take. Hopefully not 11 years like the Anderson School, but you never know. It just, we have to phase these projects as funding is available. So that's kind of the 5 steps, and you can see some of the fees involved. The next page is, there's some additional services down here that we think, one of the things you'll see, we think we need to bring in a company specializes in cameras or robots and send it down that creek that goes underneath the courthouse. But we don't know what the ceiling of that vault looks like. It's vaulted brick and rock, and the creek goes all the way to the river. So anything we do up in the foundation or the crawl space of that building, we want to make sure that that thing is sound, or we'll have to bridge across it somehow with our, you know, the structural designs. Because that could be the failure in the future if something happens with that creek. So those numbers are in there. The next few pages is all of the cost that's from our consultants, how we came up with these fees. So we've got Lordak and Sargent's costs, we've got SKA's costs, which is a structural engineering firm, Gary Davis Engineering, which is civil engineering. There are not a lot of costs with them because there's not a lot of site work, but there might be a lot of utility work or some utility work. So we've got numbers in there for them. And then SUD Associates, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection. So those are the and IT and infrastructure for technologies. So as we go through there, you can kind of see what ifs. And I was going to let Karen talk to you about what happened recently at Georgetown City Hall. It's about 300 miles north of here in Kentucky, just on the other side of Lexington. But this is a very good model to use of what they did over there in Kentucky. Karen, can you hear us? Wait a minute, we can't hear you.
We can't hear your microphone.
Jamie, does the TV have a volume on it? Or?
It's actually full on, yeah. That's the volume there. Not the TV.
She's not muted, is she?
I could get her on a cell phone. Let me do that.
Hello. I'm just calling. Hey, Karen. We're good.
Okay. Thank you.
We're good.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Karen. We're just gonna let you talk.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me again. I'm Karen Gravel. I'm Director of Historic Preservation at Lord Aiken Sargent, and we have about 12 preservation architects in our group and one conservator. And I actually grew up in Kentucky, and when this RFP came out for the Georgetown City Hall, we jumped on it because it was it's the kind of work we do, and I grew up in the next county over, so it was an honor to work on this project. I would say that they were trying to find a way, it had been renovated in the 90s, and they had the very similar issues to what's happening at the Madison County Courthouse with egress and systems being out of date and not knowing which departments needed to be in the city hall. So we went through, coming from a historic preservation background, we always we want to go into the building, understand its history, understand what's developed over time, understand what the character defining features are of the structure, in a way that we can fix all the stuff that's historic and nice and there for the long haul, and then renovate the rest so that we can get modern systems and modern uses in the building. So when Scott called me, I thought this is a great example of the same kinds of needs that were needed, and so it gave you an example of our work and work product. I'm not sure what you all are looking at on the screen right now. I've got it up too, but if you flip through the report that we sent, it basically outlines on the table of contents the main features that really are used across the nation for any projects on historic structures, starting with the history, building description, character defining features, condition assessment, and then treatment that comes from that. And then we also went through a similar programming process where we met with the city and we talked through their current needs, and were able to lay out the new program in the building and actually use some of the third floor that was being used as an attic, and also make sure that they had a proper kind of ADA accessibility throughout the building. One thing that we proposed for this project as well is to laser scan the courthouse. And about 4 years ago, we started using this technology to have the data of the building kind of as a baseline. I think on page, I'm not sure what page y'all are looking at, but page 6 of our report has an example of a laser scan where we're able to use it to help build the model, which we use for drawings. It also is a great record in time for insurance purposes for a building, as well as just having more accurate data to build the construction documents from. But we do this pretty much on every project if we can, because it's actually cheaper than going and field verifying all the measurements in the building.
Yeah, it would probably take us a week.
In our drawings.
3 people climbing around through every space, measuring and taking pictures, and then recreate it. This does it immediately with the scanners.
So, and we're able to measure off of this as well, so you can have it in your computer and reference it in live time instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to build the building. I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point. I would say that the Madison County Courthouse is a beautiful structure and is really at the heart of Marshall. And I think we would all advocate for it to have office use or, civic use to continue to keep as many people in the building and traffic in the building. That's the best for it long term. If that could be a county function or a city function, that would be the best for the building. I know that people are always wanting to learn what to do with the courtrooms, and some courthouses that we worked on continue to use certain types of court in the historic courtroom, but they also rent out the spaces for different functions, weddings, events.
I guess just as a point of clarity for all of you, we're talking about a preservation project here that takes into consideration some of the current and future needs, or are we talking about a project that is specifically designed to assess current needs and deficiencies and then project future needs and expansion?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to propose here is, I know you're limited on program space there, so is there a bigger project looming, or, what's the viability of restoring this building, and if you can't add on to it, there's things like that that's part of this visioning steps that we would go through to, maybe we only spend a certain amount of dollars on this building because you're going to do another project. I mean, we don't know. That's part of the phase one, that the viability of keeping it as a courthouse.
Right.
I know Jackson County had the very same architects. They built the new Justice Center out on the bypass, and now it's the main branch library for the county. And I think they spent about $7 million on that building that came through a rural grant from the USDA.
Now, was their building, I believe their architect was, the original architect was the same architect?
It's the same architect, Smith Carrier, who they're a spin-off of Richard Morris Hunt's office,
Yes.
who did the Biltmore Estate. So they got a little bit of, they're pretty famous around here. There's a lot of buildings downtown Asheville they all, work
And
on.
then doing their historic preservation project at $7 million over a period of time,
Yeah, a lot of it was the addition though, in the back. I mean, it was a brand new addition.
did they do that prior to an expansion program or in process with and tangent?
It was all part of it. I mean, the RFQ, the advertisement for the contractors, they had to take the roof off. And I think you guys already went through that somewhat with this courthouse. That whole roof had to come off, and it scared a lot of people. I thought they didn't even bid on it. I can't remember who the contractor was that did the project, but there was a lot of unqualified contractors that didn't go after it, and it's a good thing they didn't, because how do you preserve the building with the dome missing, that kind of thing. So it scared a lot of people, but it got fixed.
Well, guys, this is the first step in deciding what we want to do and where we want to go. And I appreciate everyone's help. We will be back with this.
Sure.
Okay? Looking forward to moving rapidly on the health department. And Rob, are you going to be here in the morning?
Yes.
7
Okay,
o'clock.
I'll see you at 7 at the health department. Okay. But thank you so much.
All right, thank you all.
And we will continue with this project.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Best wishes,
Have a
Karen.
great night. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we need to go back to,
All right,
number
7 a.m., Rob.
number 2.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
We need to look at the minutes for January 12th, regular meeting, and the minutes for January 26th, special meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I've looked at those minutes and make a motion we approve.
Got a motion?
I will second.
North second, all in favor? All right, let's move on. Next will be James Bent's, Malden and Jenkins FY20 audit presentation.
Give Jamie a moment. He's getting our other staff who are on quarantine, getting them in. Is Carrie on?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Carrie. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right,
Hey,
we're
Carrie.
very good. Okay, James? Thank you.
It's warming back up now.
Oh, we're good.
Get started as it comes in.
Yeah.
We'll catch up. But good evening, everyone. My name is James Benz. I'm the partner with Malden and Jenkins. I was the engagement partner for the county's June 30, 2020 audit. And so what I wanted to do tonight is just kind of go through our presentation of the results, just kind of as a status check of where we are. Carrie and management have approved the final reports. They're in our final quality control process. I'll get into that in a minute, but once they come out of that, they'll be in processing and ready to release. We're issuing, like a lot of governments are this year, your financial statements audit, and then we're completing the compliance audit on the federal and state programs, which is due by 9 months after your end, so by March 31st. We were hoping to be able to kind of issue those together, but we were still waiting on some open items from some of the other departments to wrap that up. As you might recall from last year's report, we had some findings and compliance issues with some of the programs. So we have kind of I think it's consistent with last year, but a large number of programs. We're testing 7 programs again this year. And having all of those departments come involved and get us information, we're kind of working through that process still. So what we've got here is kind of the results of the financial audit. I'll go through that. Certainly if there's any questions, I know this is all live for you, but certainly if you have any questions about the process, where we are, or anything on the screen, please feel free to interrupt, and I'll be happy to address it at that time. As a quick highlight, I guess, as I mentioned, I serve as the engagement partner. We also have, all of our audits have 2 partner involvement. So we have an engagement partner who's involved with the client, familiar with the relationship, and then we have a quality control partner who's independent of that process, who reviews all of the work of the file at a review level, not a detail level, but make sure that we've complied with all the requirements and that we've kind of met all of the reporting standards, so that there's no concern of any bias being too close to the client. So we do that to ensure compliance with Yellow Book standards as far as maintaining our independence, and as well as just a quality control check for all of our clients. So that's the part of the process we're in. I also want to just point out, we come and see you all, once a year at the presentation time, maybe twice a year, but just to reiterate our commitment to the government sector. And so for our firm, we are a very heavy audit service firm, which is unusual for a lot of public accounting firms. And about 32% of what our firm does is government audit specifically. And so we have 7 offices, and we're in 9 different states throughout the Southeast. And we serve about 500 governments, and we have 11 partners in that group, myself included. We work with local governments year round, and so we don't dabble in governments and then do tax work on the side. There's 11 of us who do government work year round, and so I can't answer any tax questions you may have, but I certainly I've spent the last 17 years working with local governments in the audit capacity. So as part of the audit, we conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as our governmental auditing standards. What that means is we are not testing, and we're not required to test 100% of your transaction. We don't provide an opinion of absolute assurance on the numbers, but we give an opinion as to whether or not the financial statements that management prepares are materially correct in accordance with those standards. We are anticipating and planning to issue an unmodified opinion, which is the clean opinion, that states that the financial statements prepared by management are materially correct as presented. That's what everyone's striving to achieve, and that's what you've achieved in the past. The kind of snippet in there is, as part of your financial statements, you also include information on the Madison County Housing Authority, because of its relationship to you, it's considered a component unit. We don't audit the Housing Authority, it's not part of the contract, they have their own auditors, they have their own audit contract. So our opinion as it relates to them is completely tied to their auditor's opinion, which they receive an unmodified opinion as well. But again, that's not part of our scope of service. They do have their own contract with their own audit firm. As part of the process, one of the things that we always want to point out to the governing boards, because it's not explicitly stated in our opinions, is through the audit process, obviously, we're giving an opinion as to whether or not financial statements are materially correct as presented, but we also review your accounting policies and your accounting estimates and judgments involved in those financial statements. And through that process, we did not note anything that's kind of outside the norm of accounting in your service area, in your state. We didn't notice any kind of stretches or exaggerated estimates involved in the financial information. Everything was within industry standards and within the norm for a North Carolina county. As far as the audit goes, we did have a few audit adjustments this year. I know the last couple of years for the county, the finance side has been a little shaky. I'm happy to say we're moving in the right direction. I think this year we had 6 audit adjustments across all of the funds. We'll get into one of those, which was a big adjustment relative to the fund. But to be to the point where we're down to 6 audit adjustments and management really getting a hold of what's going on, I think is a big step from where we were 2 or 3 years ago. And again, I think we're on the 3rd finance director in the 3rd year of the audit here. So it's been a lot of turnover and change. So it's good to see things moving in the right direction and kind of being able to say we're down to just 6. And hopefully, I know Carrie's working hard and she takes a lot of pride in what she does. And hopefully next year we're standing here saying there was no audit adjustments and everything was correct as presented to start. The last bullet point on here that I want to really just reemphasize, especially this year, they renew government auditing standards. We've always, as a firm, maintained a high level of independence with our clients, but we always wanted to just make sure it's clear. We are the independent external auditors. All of the numbers and information in the financial statements are provided to us for audit. We are not part of management. We're independent of that process, and it's our responsibility to give an opinion on those financial statements. So again, just reiterating the independence factor there. Generally, when everyone wants to know how they do, how'd the year go, it's a question we get a lot of times. So we try to put it in our presentations, kind of head that off a little bit. We've got here the last 3 years of how your general fund balance has looked. And so typically when an external party is going to look at the county and they want to see how's the county doing, they're going to look to the general fund and they're going to look at your fund balance. And they're going to say, let's look at what they have in their unassigned fund balance. So here in our bar graph, we've got the darker blue is your unassigned fund balance at the end of June 30 for the past 3 years. And you can see it's hung around right at 9%. So when you try to evaluate that, what that means, that's 9% of your annual operations of the general fund. So essentially, you've got about 36 days of what some people will call reserves, but we'll call it unassigned fund balance, available for future years to use to cover those operations. GFOA is a national organization, the Government Finance Officers Association, but they set out kind of a guideline for June 30 year-end clients or June 30 year-end governments, and they say you should be somewhere in the 40 to 60 day range as far as what you have in the unassigned. And what we kind of like to point out in North Carolina is, keep in mind, GFOA is a national organization, so they're setting this across the country, not specific to any one state. In North Carolina, what we have is the state stabilization requirement, which requires governments to restrict a portion of your fund balance. Essentially, everything that's not in cash, the state requires you to restrict. And so if you actually take that number, which is the orange part of the chart, you all are sitting at 87 days of reserves. So you're within where GFOA is telling you to be at. They want you to be somewhere around 60 to 90 days. And so if you were not in North Carolina and you were in another county that didn't have the state requirement, you would be where GFOA says you would be. And so we always try to keep that in mind when we look at your 9% compared to what GFOA is asking. The next slide is a very 30,000 feet up in the air, look at your general fund budget. So we've got your original column is your original budget as originally set by the board at the start of the fiscal year. The amendments were the changes that were made to the budget throughout the course of the year, and the final column represents your final approved budget for operations for the year, actual being how the year actually ended. So you'll see what I like to look at here is at your final approval of the budget, the county planned to use about $487,000 of fund balance to operate and cover the operations of the year. By the time the year closed, you can see the main driver in this was expenditures, but by the time the year closed, we actually added 1.5 to fund balance. So instead of using that, you had a $2 million swing. Instead of using the fund balance, we actually added to fund balance. And a lot of that is the $3 million expenditures coming in the budget, which actually is pretty typical right now, because if you consider the fact that the last quarter of the year was when COVID was kind of at its peak, a lot of government saw a little bit of decrease in holding back projects, holding back spending, and reducing costs where we could, because we didn't know what was coming. And so that's kind of where the year ended from a budget comparison standpoint. On your enterprise funds, your landfill fund is your main enterprise fund. It's a little bit different. Their accounting treatment is different. So when people want to see how the enterprise funds are looking, you typically look at cash flows. And I guess the item I wanted to point out here on the landfill fund is this year's cash flows from operating activities was actually a negative cash flow of about $100,000. I imagine it's probably no surprise, but the trend you'll see kind of in the 3 bullets down here at the bottom, the trend that we've seen now is the cash flows from operations have decreased each of the last 3 years. So we were positive 233 in 2018, we were positive 63,000 in 2019, and now we're at negative $100,000. So where we want to kind of make sure that stands out is we need to really evaluate maybe a rate structure issue or maybe an operating cost issue, but being able to reinvest and use the money to help the landfill operations right now, it's going in the wrong direction. And so just want to make sure we're considering that in our annual budgeting process, setting rates, evaluating the costs there. As part of the audit, we do have 2 items that we're going to be reporting as material weaknesses in the internal controls for the county. One of them is a repeat we've had for a couple of years. It probably is of no surprise, but obviously we have a segregation of duties concern in the finance department. So we have one person who handles a lot of the responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. Doesn't imply that there's anything going on, but from a sound control system, sound control procedures, we should try to separate or have compensating controls when we can't have enough people to separate these responsibilities. And so in the finance department, we have one individual who has the ability to review and approve manual journal entries, review and approve the bank reconciliations, disperse funds. They have access to the check signer information, they have access to payroll data and the purchase card review process. All of that's centralized and able to be done by one person. Again, nothing in our audit came about that raises any initial concerns with that, other than the opportunity for error, unintentional or not, is there when you don't have a proper segregation of duties. And so I know we've met with Carrie and Commissioner Gentry, talked about this a little bit. It's not something you're going to magically just eliminate overnight, but we need to make sure we're working to separate those or bring in additional compensating controls when we can't separate those responsibilities. The last item we have this year is a material weakness, deals with the journal entry we had in the general fund this year. We had to make an adjustment for about $275 for grants, which had been received in cash by the county. In an attempt to try to track those grants, they were treated as a liability on the books until the purpose was met. However, under GASB 33, the accounting for that specifically says when you get cash funds up front and you've met the eligibility requirements, but you haven't met the purpose of using those, they should be recognized as revenue and then considered a restriction of fund balance. And so essentially the accounting was on the kind of the revenue recognition piece of that. So we moved it from a liability to the revenue for June 30, 2020 audits. Again, the cash was already reported, the cash was appropriately handled, the tracking of the grant funds accounting that we dealt with. We had two management recommendations. Those are items that we typically come across in an audit that don't raise the level of concern of a significant deficiency or material weakness. But we're trying to make a partnership. We're always trying to point out areas for improvement when they're there. And so the first one on here is really just an overarching thing that we've seen in a lot of governments in the IT environment. Obviously, it's becoming a bigger issue for governments. We see, I think even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, there was a big hack on a water system down in Florida where someone actually got in and was trying to manipulate the chemical levels of the water system through an IT hack. And so we always encourage our governments to make sure that not only do we have an IT risk assessment plan in place, but that we're actually testing it. So if you think about it just like the financial side, you have an audit to make sure your financial controls are working. Do you have an audit in place? It's not required currently, but do you have an audit in place to make sure your IT systems are working? Do you know where your vulnerabilities are? Do you know what your action plan is if things to happen is? And so we just want to make sure if you're not currently thinking about that, if it's not something that is on the forefront of your mind, that it is a risk. It may not be happening at the moment, but you may have some exposure that you need to assess. The last item on here is you have one of your funds, the occupancy tax fund, did not have a budget set during the year, and technically it should have a budget set each year, even if it has minimal levels of activity. So again, we've met with Carrie, we met with Commissioner Gentry on these recommendations. I certainly think that the budget is something to be easily addressed going forward, but the IT environment, we encourage you to consider that, evaluate it, but at the same time, we understand there's a cost to doing those. So we make the recommendation and we'll decide on the actions. With that,
Could
I've
you
got
repeat
several
that
slides.
last
We'll
one
get a
again?
copy of this presentation. Yes,
Could you repeat that last one again?
the
Afraid
IT.
I couldn't hear all that.
I'm
On
sorry.
the tax fund,
So for the occupancy tax fund, there was
okay.
no budget formally adopted by the board. However, state statute requires that you have a budget for all funds being adopted. So just,
Thank you.
If you don't know what it is, I always tell people just adopt a really small budget and then amend it if you have operations that come in during the year. Because I know sometimes some of these funds may not have much to speak of in the way of activity. And then the last several slides, just to make you aware, I'm not going to go through all of these. But GASB is the accounting standard setting body for governments. They've been extremely active over the last couple of years. They issued one statement to defer all new implementations during COVID. Starting with the 2021 audit, we have GASB 84 through GASB 97, 13 standards that are coming out in the next couple of years that will be applicable. So we work with management, we offer training courses, and we will proactively work with them to make sure that they're aware of what's coming down the pipe for the county as it's applicable. But you all being the decision-making body, you always want to make sure you're aware of what standards are out there, what's coming, as it may or may not affect decisions you all make. So immediately for 2021, there is one standard coming, but it's really not that impactful for Madison. So I'm not too worried about this coming year, but then in 2022, there's a big standard on lease accounting that's going to change a lot of governments, and it's really going to be more burdensome on management to assess how big a deal it is than it is to actually implement it. So, but we have another year to deal with that, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's all I have this evening. Certainly, with any questions anyone has.
Okay, James, thank you very much. Carrie, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I don't. I just want to say thank you very much, James.
Welcome. Thank you.
I will make one observation as we move toward budgeting. The IT part, and Jamie's in the room, we've already been discussing the necessities, and there will be a substantial increase recommended in the IT budget for next year. In the current budget, we did dramatically alter the revenue flow for the enterprise fund. I'm talking a whole here. So we did address, we knew we were on a very bad path. And on this current year's operating budget, when you do the audit, you will see that the revenue for the solid waste has increased. It has caused some issues in the community that we're all working on. But thank you very, very much, but it's been a pleasure to work with you and a continued pleasure to work with you. And gentlemen, he came all the way up from Georgia tonight to be with us, and I truly appreciate that. You are spending the night, I hope.
I am.
Okay.
It's not that far of a trip, but
Yeah.
it is dark, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you know when this will be final?
The concurrent reviewer said she'll have it to me by Wednesday, and then processing typically takes a couple of days, so in all likelihood, either late Friday or probably early next week.
Okay.
And then the compliance side, it's harder to nail down because we're still waiting on information, so it's not really in our court. Like I said, the goal is, and I know Carrie's helping push, the goal is to get it all within the next couple of weeks so we can try to get it out by the March 31st deadline.
Okay. All right.
And as long as we meet March 31st, we are in compliance with the LGC.
Yeah, so we'll have to do the contract amendment, like we do each year, and then, or have had to do each year. And then, yeah.
Okay.
You didn't seem too concerned about our fund balance at 9%. Is it not true that the state average is 28%?
And we keep a minimum of 8%, is that correct?
Yeah.
Mandatory 8% with an average of 28.
So 1% is not
It's,
great.
yeah, I mean, do I seem concerned? No. Is it lower than the state average? Yes, but state average has, I mean, it's hard to look at that when you try to, you all are a smaller rural county. The state average is driven by some counties and municipalities that have some really large fund balance numbers. So I don't have anything that shows it, but I could go back and look at some of the apples to apples, if you will,
Right.
where you all stand compared to others. And that in a similar situation, because the state, the LGC does a good job. They put out reports that analyze, you can pull data by populations.
Right.
So if you like, I can pull some numbers to show you where you all are compared to that. But for me, I look at you and I also factor in the state stabilization. Because that in reality, the formula that they use to calculate that is essentially anything you don't have in cash at June 30th is restricted fund balance. But you have a large portion of your sales tax dollars that sit in receivables.
Yes.
That we know you've collected within 60 days. It's not that I'm worried that you're not going to have that cash at some point in time because it's a receivable that we
Right.
have to estimate an allowance on. We already know by the time the audit started, you have that cash.
And that's where we look at the 80+ days.
Correct. And so when I, you don't hit the metric of 28% average of the state, but in reality, you're better than 9% because within 15 days, you collected your July remittance of the
Right.
sales tax. And if you were any other state in the country and didn't have that as a restriction, it would have rolled into your unassigned and made it a much higher number. So you're not at the average. I don't think it's fair to compare this county to the average across the state, but you're better than 9%.
Right.
So,
Well, good. Thank you for the clarity.
Yes.
absolutely.
Donnie, do you have any questions?
I don't, no.
All right, we'll move on then.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Next on the agenda is Kate Singo.
Good evening. Hello. I'm Kate Singogo here from the LifeWorks program with Community Action Opportunities. Each year we are required to submit an application for our community services block grant funds. We are designated by the governor to receive those funds. And we're given an allocation each year, and then we're told, how are you gonna, we're told that we have to decide how to spend it. So we conduct a community needs assessment every 3 years to determine the best ways that we can spend those dollars. This upcoming year, which starts July 1, 2021 and runs through June 30th, 2022, for Madison County, we're allocated $44,125. That is a decrease of about $2,000 from this current year that we're in right now. Although it's a $2,000 decrease for the county, we actually took a larger hit as a program. So we do serve 6 counties in total. We serve Buncombe, Madison, McDowell, Transylvania, Henderson, and Polk. And the current year that we're in right now, our allocation was $760,381. And for our next upcoming year, that allocation was reduced to $718,716. Now that allocation is set by the state. These are federal dollars that then trickle down to the state level, and then the states divide them up by county based on the percentages of poverty. So we are an anti-poverty agency. We're here to help people move out of poverty. The way that we have historically done that is through helping people get full-time living wage work, by helping them complete training and education, and by helping them manage their financial capabilities. And so teaching people, once they start making money, how to use that money. We have not, due to our most recent community needs assessment, we did not determine any huge difference in our kind of strategies for helping people move out of poverty. So we're kind of staying the course right now by using our long-term holistic case management model, and partnering with people one-on-one. We do spend a large chunk of the allocation that we're given in Madison County on what we call direct assistance. So we're able to pay to remove barriers for folks. So we can pay for education and training. We can help pay for car repairs, or go to Walmart and get people food if they need it, or help them get work boots or a new outfit for a job interview, those kinds of things. So we spend a good chunk in direct assistance. That's kind of the course that we're going to stay with. It is a long-term program, so people can be in the program up to 3 years, and in some cases up to 5. We have one person who recently just bought their own home here in Madison County, and so we're very excited about that. And we have another person who is in the process of purchasing a home, so we also help people move towards home ownership whenever possible. And so despite our kind of chunk of a cut that we received as a program, we are very thankful that our funds in Madison County remain pretty stable, and that our program looks to be on track. We have shifted the way that we have been working since COVID has hit. However, our coach in Madison County continues to partner with NC Works and AB Tech, and has an office inside the NC Works Center. She's there a couple of times a week and is scheduling. And so we're around. It's limited. Of course, we're limiting the number of people that we can see at a time and maintaining social distancing and all of those pieces. But we're thankful that our operations have been able to stay intact in spite of the pandemic. So you were all provided a very lengthy copy of our application. I'm here to answer any questions or any comments that you have, and thankful for your time.
Got anything?
I would just like to make a personal point. Having had personal experience when I was working with AB Tech and in the Career Center, these folks do a wonderful job, that they really do. They're a lifeline for people who oftentimes don't have any other lifeline, and you guys do a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very rewarding work, let me say. I love my job, so.
No, very clear. Very clear. Michael, thank you.
Yes.
No, it was a good report. I was a little concerned about one of the charts reporting on our poverty levels in relationship to a number I saw from Land to Sky Regional Council, but then I realized that particular chart in here was a 2018, and then you had a more current 2020 in the pages preceding that. So it was very detailed. Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah, you're welcome. It takes a long time to put that thing together, let me tell you.
Imagine. A lot of data.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Next on the agenda
We
is,
need to approve this. We need to approve the application. Mr. Attorney? Yes. So I move that we approve the recommended application this evening.
got a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thanks for keeping us straight.
Oh, no problem.
All righty, Miss Carrie, you're up. Carrie Ledford.
Hi, Carrie.
Gentlemen, before you, you have for your approval, item A, which is budget amendment number 8. Can you guys hear me okay?
No, yeah, you're fine.
Yes,
Okay.
we're good, Karen, thank you.
This amendment records additional funds for your health department from the remaining CARES funds for the part-time temporary positions needed for testing and vaccinations that was approved at the January 26th meeting. You will also see movement from lapsed salaries in the finance office to cover some increased salary lines within other county departments. You will also be approving adjustment to your transportation admin department budget. These numbers are based on the approved budget from the state that is within backup documents that I supplied for your approval. Also, you'll see the recording of the first months of revenue generated by the new half-cent sales tax that went into effect in October. These funds will be distributed to the school system on a monthly basis going forward, pending your approval.
Carrie, is that supposed to be a quarter cent instead of half on the school?
Excuse me, Mark, if you can say that one more time?
Is that supposed to be a quarter cent instead of a half on the school?
Yes.
Quarter cent, yes, sir. My apologies, thank you.
All right.
Page third item.
They'd be happy for a half cent, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they would be tickled with the half.
However, the state will not allow it. We got the maximum the state will allow us.
Correct.
All right. Mr. Chairman, if there's no comment or others, I move that we approve the budget amendment as presented by our interim finance officer.
I'll second it. All in favor? Any questions? Got any questions, Mike?
No, it's good, thank you.
All in favor? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Next, gentlemen, if you look at item B, that's January's financial report. On the top of the first page, you'll see that we are 58.3% into our FY '21 budget. For all funds, we received 74.81% of our revenues. And for our expenses, we are at 51.39%, just below the possible 58%. So we are still collecting good on our revenues and still maintaining a below average expense at this time.
So are we about where we were this time last year, Carrie?
Yes, you can see, you can see the numbers on there. You can see that we are, the bottom number, I wish I had that in front of me easily. You can see, we are, yes, Mark, Commissioner, nothing else.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just Mark.
Jerry, are you comfortable with the 58.33%? I mean, I know it looks, I mean, are you comfortable there?
That's where we should be, and we are down below that. We are at 51% expense.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay. I missed that. Thank you. Yeah, there it says 51%. Great, thank you.
Anybody got anything else? You good, Carrie?
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to go. Take care.
All right, we'll move on to item number 8. Diana Norton, tax assessor. Good evening, Ms. Diane.
Good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Well, you're moving approval of the January's, vote for January 12th.
Okay. So does it look like the release is 50,547?
which is a continuing, pretty dramatic decline. Month to month.
Chair, what page are you on with that figure? Page 4 of that document?
Page
Yeah.
4, where you got,
Thank you.
50,
The
54.
short page.
Okay, thank you.
So Diane, when these are done, what is some of the reasons why they're done? I mean, is it,
I mean, looking through these, the majority of them is landfill.
okay,
Release cards.
got any questions on these?
And a big part of one of those is a county-owned piece of property got billed.
Okay.
That was $30-something thousand.
Okay. Yeah, so really it's 20,000 instead of 50.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see that there, 32,000, we're at 30. Yep. Motion.
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to accept this as presented.
Second motion.
All in favor?
One more thing for us.
It's that time of year for Board of ENR.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yay! I've just picked a few dates to see if it's good with y'all. The first one would be April 12th,
What day of the week is that?
Monday.
Okay.
Can we do these on Tuesday?
I'm good with whatever y'all are good with.
Because that's your normal day off.
Yeah, that's my normal day off, and two, everybody's getting back. Monday morning is normally fairly busy for everybody coming back in, so.
Okay. Now, that will throw that, I do believe, on our meeting day. But that's not a
It
big
would be
deal.
that week.
Yeah,
We
but
can
it's not a big
change
deal.
it.
So, I don't have a problem doing it Monday, I'm just saying, I know people coming back in Monday morning is busy, and
Okay, April 13th,
Want to do April 13th?
we're good, guys?
oh, I don't wanna do that on the day we got a meeting, honestly. Because, you spend 4 or 5 hours here, and then you've got a meeting for 2 or 3 hours that night, so.
Diane, would you be ready to go on the 6th, do you think, or is that too early?
That should be fine.
No, not, if you think it's too early, please let us know.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so.
Your
April
first
6th.
one, you may not have many people anyway.
Yeah,
It'll
that's what I was
probably be
gonna
the
say.
second and
It'll be
third one.
light. Yeah, okay. 6th, okay.
May 4th. Can we do June 15th?
Should work.
Do we wanna just do, can we do more than one a month, or is that just too much, Diane?
We can if y'all want to. That's fine with me.
I mean, if we're gonna have a lot, we'll just set.
As of right
dates
now,
tonight.
we don't have a lot, but we've not started sending notices out yet either.
Yeah.
Okay. And how is the public gonna know? Are we gonna put it on the website, or are you gonna
I
send
have
something
to
out?
advertise it.
Okay. And you say advertise what, be in the paper?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we can start with these dates, and then if we start getting overwhelmed, we can add dates, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve these dates?
No, just as long as we're really all in agreement that these dates are.
But I'm good to advertise those dates.
Yeah. Donnie, do we actually need a motion? So I didn't think we did.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Diane.
Diane.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Miss Mandy, you got those, right? Okay, we're good.
Next up, we have Mr. Norris Gentry, County Manager update.
All right, guys, we've got a bunch of moving parts, needless to say. You will find in front of you on the table the latest revenue report from our tax office. That was as of through the end of business on the 4th of February. I will make a note that, because this seemed to be a bit of confusion last time. If you look in the very last column to the right, that is not the difference in money. That is the difference in percentage of collection. The second one there, one immediately to the left of that, is actually the difference in collected dollars. So if you'll take the top one, as of February 4th, we had collected 90.52% of billed property tax versus 88.25% same time last year. So at that point, we were 2.27% of billed taxes ahead in collections. Basically, without getting too deep in the vines, we're really right on target, and we had budgeted for a 92.5% collection rate. I've talked to Lori. I think it is reasonable that we will collect better than that. We budgeted for 92.5. Of course, we've still got things to come, and it's all things about the economy and all the other things. But this is a good report. You will look down through the fire districts. Those come and go. There's really no real issues that I know of in anywhere. It's not like the some other things. Now, if you look at disposal fees, we are also ahead in the percentage of the collection of billed ones, and you can note there the substantial increase that is reflected so far in the generated revenue, and that is in real dollars to this point. Okay, and of course, very, very small late listing fees. Those are always a small relative to the large number. So does anyone have any questions about the information on the tax collections?
No.
And of course, we will continue to provide these on a regular basis. Each meeting, I will have these available for us. All right, the next one, I'm going to ask Mandy to bring us up to speed on her clerk's school. Mandy?
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner. Clerk school starts next week. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it will be virtual. So I'm excited to talk to him for that. I'm super excited. All 5 days next week from 9 in the morning until about 3:30 to 4 in the afternoon. So it's going to be long days for me. So I appreciate the opportunity for you guys to allow me to attend to increase my knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Mandy Salt, and again, to remind everyone, got a scholarship for the School of Government to earn that certification. So I will add a note: if you need to reach her, call me first, so we don't interrupt her while she's trying to do school. Okay. I have signed up for the March 15 through 17 North Carolina Rural Summit. And that is a big state event that will again be virtual this year instead of in person. And if any of you would like a little more information about that, or actually would like to come any of those days on the 15th through the 17th, when I'm going to be on, I'll give you an agenda. So if you want to just come and sit in on some of the virtual meetings and the Zooms that are going on. And this is the largest annual summit for rural North Carolina. It's been going on for several years, and it's really an interesting event. As we have discussed previously, we will be requesting and be bringing to you $13,000 that we will need to pull from contingency to upgrade all of the bells and whistles electronically in the courthouse. Jamie and his staff have put together the proposal that the legal system in North Carolina is mandating. If you've not been down and looked at the new glass wall that is in the courtroom, please do so. Now that glass wall, it's first class. I mean, it really is. It was put up by the state. It didn't cost us anything but a little bit of our maintenance guys. And however, we're going to have to foot the bill for the audio visual and for the new sound system. However, the courtroom will be good for anybody, anytime, anywhere, anyway. It won't be just good for the court system.
Is that the 13,000?
Yes, sir. And that's the best deal that that our IT department could work out, and it is with the same people that have done this elsewhere in the state. So it will make the judges happy, and it's the same same stuff.
That's,
We have had the survey done for the Madison medics discussion, and if any of you have drove by, you can probably see the survey stakes. They're pretty obvious from the road. And we're expecting that survey literally any day. And we'll pass that on, of course, to Donnie ASAP when we get it. We are going to be reaching out to the same surveyor to help us move forward with the Spring Creek project we've been working on with the fire department and the Spring Creek Community Center over there. And Adam has been reached out to. We do not have a confirmation yet on that. Terry Dolan, who was with us earlier, and I know has a very early morning event, he and I have been working on getting, along with Lewis Roberts, getting with the Marshall Smoky Mountain Fire District and the Hot Springs Fire District to move forward on the activities we need to get those fire districts properly taxed. We've talked about that for years.
Yes, we have.
And so Terry has, now he's got his feet on the ground with other things. He's going to take the lead in moving along with Lewis, who obviously has really good connections with our fire departments. And that is not something we have forgotten. That's actually something that's moving pretty quickly now up the food chain. We have had recent meetings in the last few days that have been virtual. The last one that was live was approximately 6 weeks ago with representatives of the local utilities and having to do with EV and other energy projects. The window is opening for us to have the opportunity for solar projects, assistance with converting a number of our buildings to make them much more energy efficient. Much of this will be grant driven over the next year to 18 months, and it will probably include moving toward the purchase or use of some EV or hybrid vehicles, as well as charging stations that we can use, as well as charging stations the public can use. And we'll keep you up to speed on that, but there's a lot of interest now, and that was really pretty strong even before the particular change that's occurring in Washington, because the utilities are looking aggressively at ways to reduce their production. It is cheaper to have people save energy now than it is for the utility companies to build new facilities. So everybody's in that, and Madison County stands to be in a position to get several things which will help the county government, but which will also help the public.
Marsha, we also looking at, as far as the charging stations and the projects in general, looking at partnering with our municipalities to maybe help facilitate the grants and the funding to, and maybe even the locales for those?
Yes. The general discussion will go to where we have multiple use as possible. Well, just as an example, Ingalls just put one in at Weaver, okay, which was a joint project with Duke and with Ingalls. We are remodeling the Ingalls on the bypass. If you've not been in it, it is under renovation. I think the first one that Ingalls will probably work with is Madison, just due to the volume of that, but it could be here. And our location across the street in the old Ingalls is a perfect location for some of our vehicles that might be. We've already discussed with DSS, we've discussed with inspections, we've discussed with other internals, that where we do not have 200, 250 miles a day on a vehicle. Those are perfect vehicles to be EVs and would come back. And also you need a location which has a high solar, because you can use a solar booster on these. But the beauty of it is, guys, this stuff's going to be moving forward, and we're going to get our shot at it like everybody else. And we should, and it just something, but it's going to be coming quicker than we first thought. Okay. We now have one board appointment you will find in your packet. And And this application, as you will see, which has been approved by our health department, the board, and our health director, is for Dr. Shannon Dowler, who will be going on the board when we moved Dr. Melissa Robinson up, and she was filling the position of Dr. Daly. So I bring to the board one appointment. That is for Dr. Shannon Dowler for the Board of Health.
We need to have a motion.
We do need to approve that by motion,
I
sir.
make a motion.
Second motion.
Approve Doctor. What's his name?
Dowler.
Dowler. I got a second?
Yes.
Michael? All in favor?
All right, I have one last item before we go to closed session, and it is the official approval for the Madison County Economic Development Incentive Guidelines. And you have a copy in your book that's draft on it, but it is the final copy. And this has been reviewed by our attorney. It's presented to us through our Community and Economic Development Department, and it has a long history of getting here. Donnie, have you got anything you'd like to add relative to that before we make a motion?
I think it's an excellent set of guidelines that would be available for your economic development department so that it will assist in the recruiting industry here, because we can give those folks interested in coming to Madison County a set of guidelines that if they want to make an investment in X number of jobs or an investment in X number of increase to business personal property or to real estate, then they can make an application to get an incentive back to us, so they can look to see what is available if they wish to relocate or even expand their business here. It'd be a good tool for Terry to have at her disposal.
And they do meet all of the incentive guidelines of the North Carolina General Statute 158-7.1.
I don't have that. See what that's?
I don't know.
It could be in your book, Ed.
I had a,
I'm not still wasn't online.
I had a hard copy in my stuff,
Yeah.
not in the book.
Could be
It was
on the
in
table,
a,
maybe in your case. There it is. There it is.
Yeah. Here it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Kept looking at the book.
Too many pieces of paper. And this is not something new. This has been in the works for literally, Donna, this has been being worked on for what, 2 years?
At least 2 years.
Yes.
And it is the same policy that we have had in Yancey County for about the last 10 years, and it has proved immensely successful to us. We've probably awarded 4 to 5 grants along those guidelines. The first being to Altec Industries back in 2007.
Yes, we do need to
Do
approve.
I have a motion to adopt or approve?
I will so move.
second.
All in favor?
Chairman, that's all I have, and at this time, I would request that we go into closed session for personnel and property.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second. All right, personnel will be NC State 143-318.11, A abbreviation.
Yep.
All right, we are now closed session. I need to take a look.
We're going to take a 2-minute break, folks. Mike, safe travels. Anna, good to see you.
See, she's a good hardcore fan.
Good to see you.
Thank you for saying something about Jack.
Oh, yes.
So sad.
Bye, y'all. Good to see you.
Yeah, Jack was a, Jack.
She's be next year, she's be back. They're coming.
session. Ms. Brooke, you want to take the reins?
Transportation Operations is requesting the hire of Ray Air as full-time transportation driver.
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second motion.
All in favor? 4. All right, next.
Transportation Operations is requesting the hire of Corey Blankenship as full-time custodian.
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor? 4-0.
Mr. Chairman, being no other business to come before this meeting tonight, I move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
In favor?
All in favor?